live. Hey, everybody. Robbins here with the Great Minds Drink Alike podcast. How y'all doing out there? I hope you guys are doing good. I've got Mike Stodola with me.
Hey.
One of my favorites, like Hollywood Squares. I don't know how your screen's set up, but he's right below me. So our next guest, I've got Mr. John Ratliff. Some of you remember John. He was a speaker at boot camp. Was it this year, John?
Yeah, it was this year. Just
holy shit!
Short months ago. Yeah,
it
seems like 2 lifetimes ago, but yeah, it was May of this year.
You're living a life when you like what is it, 9 months ago feels like 2 years. I mean, like, oh my God, I'm jamming so much in. So John is somebody who I've come to know. I think we originally met through Vern Harnish. I think originally you were at that event I was doing with Vern. Do you remember that?
Yep.
Were you there?
Yep. Yeah, I was there.
And so John, actually, he grew, so he's the founder of a company called Appletree Answers. He started that from scratch. He grew it through acquisitions from a single office to 24 offices across the country. I think at the point when you sold it, it was about 650 employees. You're now running the coaching division for Vern Harnish, Rockefeller Habits, which a lot of my members know Vern. They've seen him. They've had him speak at, we've had him speak at our event. And you at Align 5 in your business now, you do primarily mergers and acquisitions. You got your hands on a lot of things. When I was writing some notes, I was like, well, shit, I don't know. Are you running Vern's coaching? Are you doing mergers, acquisitions? So, tell the audience just kind of what it is. I think, what is your focus? What are you doing these days? Because I know you do the Vern Harnish coaching, but you also do mergers and acquisitions.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of all of the above. I think I was lucky enough early on as an entrepreneur. I was probably, I don't know, let's say 4 or 5 years in, and I was lucky enough. Someone recommended that I read the E-Myth, and Michael Gerber in the E-Myth talks about pulling the curtain back, and there's a whole different way. And that really began a journey for me of kind of becoming a better entrepreneur. And I got so much help along the way. Vern and I crossed paths probably the first time in, I think, 2004, 2005. I joined EO, and I never would have gotten to where we ended up without all that support along the way. So I sold Appletree, the call center company, in 2012. And really since then, I've been on a mission to make sure that other entrepreneurs that are kind of on that path, and it's a lonely road. I mean, right, Robin, your members, the entrepreneurs on this call understand that it can be a really lonely path. And it's kind of been my life's mission to help that group of people. Like, that's my tribe. That's I want to be a hero to the entrepreneur. And in some ways that's strategic consulting. In a lot of ways it's helping with M&A. I think, it's interesting. You had Chris on before me. Negotiating is one of those skills that just doesn't get taught properly. And entrepreneurs really struggle to understand negotiating. They also really struggle to understand exit strategy. And it's kind of like this black box. And, our analogy is that doing M&A properly when you've never sold a company before is virtually impossible. It's like trying to play golf for the first time ever, and you're playing against one of the top tour pros, and there's no chance. It's a complete mismatch. So my mission in life is actually to help entrepreneurs navigate the trickier parts of the landscape and things that I got help with along the way, and obviously worked out well for me. So yeah, it's consulting, it's M&A, it's that kind of whole universe. And the coaches organization, that's about 250 people around the world, 6 continents actually, that wake up every day and that's all they care about. Their mission is helping entrepreneurs. So it's pretty cool. Even though I have my hands in all sorts of different pots, there's really a thread that kind of ties it all together, and that's what it is. And I mean your people, like the middle market, like gut it out from scratch, start it, like claw your way in and get it going. Like, that's who needs the help the most. It's not, we don't help $500 million companies, and we help some $100 and $200 million companies, but really we're about like the ones that are crossing that line between, like, started it from scratch and we're scaling the wall, and now we know, like, where we want to go, but we don't know how to get there. That's who I love to help and be involved with.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think you think about it, like, I think most people in business, myself included, you start out, for me, I was just replacing a job, and I needed a way to make money. And, maybe I think there's some people start businesses that have big visions. But for me, it was just that was the sort of bleh. It was just like hey, I got to get a paycheck. And at some point you kind of wake up and you go, I could probably grow this thing. And how big could I grow it? And what could this be? And you start to learn that. And you go, and you're right, you go on this journey, and then the acquisition, especially in the MSP space, because mergers and acquisitions are so hot in this space. The message that I keep telling my members is, you're in a very hot sector. There's a lot of money. There's mergers, acquisitions. Take advantage of that. Take advantage of it, because it's not happening in carpet cleaning. It's not happening in, I don't know, like pet sitting. I don't know, whatever. It's not that they're bad businesses, but there's this opportunity. And I think you're right. I mean, at some point in your entrepreneurial journey, you get to a point where you go to yourself, you know what? I need to have an exit strategy.
Yeah.
And not even because you're tired. I mean, sometimes you're tired and you're done. Sometimes it's like, I'm ready for chapter 2. Sometimes, like, I think you mentioned to me with Appletree Answers, you woke up one day and said, shit, I got a lot of my personal equity is tied. If personal equity is tied in this, if this thing, something bad happens, downturn in the economy, I don't know, one of your employees does some stupid shit and you're like, maybe I should take some chips off the table. Right. So I think most entrepreneurs, and I say this, I'm saying most because I'm speaking from, like, I've worked with over 10,000 clients. I'm an entrepreneur myself. I think we don't think, and I'm saying we, because I'll include myself in it. You don't think about the exit as much as you should. And, you don't want to wait until you absolutely must exit to exit. Like, you want to be thinking about this. What do you say? Like 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, 3 to 5 years is ideal. And really, almost, the day you start your company should be the day you start to think about it. But
it should be, but it ain't gonna happen, right?
But
I mean, most people are like, how do I get a customer in here day one? That's the goal,
Right. Well, the interesting thing too is that until Larry Page cracks the code on immortality, every entrepreneur is going to have an exit at some point. Exactly. And what we like to say is you either get to choose it elegantly or it gets chosen for you. And having your exit chosen for you is a really bad idea. Whether you're going to pass it on to your kids, sell it to your employees, sell it to a financial buyer, sell it to a strategic buyer, or just close the doors, you want to be really thoughtful about what that means and what that means to you. And we come across people all the time that say, I'm going to worry about that down the road. I'll figure that out later. I have no interest in selling. I have no interest in this or that. I'll figure it out later. And then, something happens. It could be disability. It could be a death in the family. It could be a divorce. They call them the like 70s or 60s or 5. But you could get disenchanted and not want to be there anymore. And if you haven't been proactive and thought about it ahead of time, then you wake up one day and you're like, uh-oh, like now it's time, and you're behind the 8 ball already. And that's where, again, I talk about the playing field. Buyers are very sophisticated. Most sellers are very unsophisticated, and that is a bad combination. And if you are now an unsophisticated seller up against the clock or some sort of outcome that, is forcing you into an exit now, like that compounds the problem tenfold. Yeah. And we're not saying sell your business. We're saying be ready at all times. Someone might knock on the door and say, hey, you guys are in a hot space. The MSP space right now is on fire for M&A. Someone may knock on your door, and it always goes like this. Hey, have you ever thought about selling your company? And normally the answer is no, I haven't thought about that. And next thing you know, you find yourself with a sole source buyer, and you're 3/4 of the way down the path, and you're in a total mismatch situation. And you want to be really thoughtful and in advance, in case the knock on the door from whatever the knock is, when it comes, you want to be prepared, and you want to have thought it out in advance. So super, super important.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think, and, getting your business ready for sale is no different than getting your business to be as healthy and successful and profitable and stable as possible. I mean,
100%.
it's like, it's kind of like getting your house ready for sale. Like a lot of people are really lazy and sloppy, and the ice maker doesn't work, and there's a big hole in the wall over there, and the carpet's stained, and it's a mess, right? And so
Yeah.
by getting your business ready for sale, it's not like you have to sell, but it actually disciplines you to create a product, because your business is basically a product, right? It disciplines you to think about, hey, are our contracts aligned? Do we have good cash flow? Do we have financial discipline? I mean, I know you and I've talked about, when a sophisticated buyer comes knocking on your door and they say, show me your books, and you send them an Excel spreadsheet. I mean, they're like, you might as well put sucker right across the top, right? You know what I mean? Like discount, like Walmart discount right across the top, because they're looking at you going, this doofus can't even keep his books, and so and they might see something, they know something, they can get a multiple that you can't. And so they can monetize your business, and they're not interested in paying you as much as they can. I mean, we get calls. So my company, we get calls all the time from people who are like, hey, can you introduce us to somebody who wants to sell? And what they're really looking for, they're not looking for a big multiple buyout. They're looking for the desperate, out of luck, needs to sell, uneducated, buy low, sell high. That's what they're looking for, And
Exactly
so, I think what you do, I mean, I know you and I talked quite a bit over this last year about creating what we call the BFCC club, the big fucking check club, where we have our members, and it's all about getting your business ready to sell with a 3 to 5 year ramp, so that you are, in that mindset of, hey, maybe we don't sell in 3 years. But in 3 years, if we get ready for it, we're going to be a freaking awesome, profitable, well-run organization. And there's profit and there's benefit in that,
Amen. And think about it this way: the number one detractor. So I want you to put yourself in the shoes of a buyer, right? You're gonna take your capital, you're gonna buy a company and put that capital at risk, and then you want to get a return. The number one detractor, the number one risk factor for the buyer, is the entrepreneur being completely integral to the company. So if the entrepreneur gets hit by the proverbial bus, or pick your metaphor, and you now have to run this business without them, and it won't run without them, then there's a lot of risk in that capital. So why not, as an entrepreneur operating a company, make yourself redundant, so you don't have to be there 80 hours a week. You don't have to miss your kids' birthday parties. You don't, you're not like the central hub of everything. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, especially ones that have started from scratch, that's all they've ever known, right? What dumbass would ever start a company? It's like the worst job ever. It pays like $1 an hour for the first few years, and we're totally beholden to the business. Why not take the time now to figure out how to not be beholden to the business? By the way, that's going to give you better life balance. That's going to give you better happiness, all those things. And as a side benefit, it's going to raise the value of the company. So, and listen, I get it. I was there. I slept under the desk. I missed payroll. I did all the stuff. But one day I woke up and I'm like, there's a better way. And I don't need to be like, my identity is not tied to, and this is so, so, so important. If your business is like your arm, like an extension of you, and you're so tied to it and it's part of your identity, it's probably going to wear you out really fast. You think about your business as something completely separate from yourself. You said it, your business is a product. It's an asset that you're basically going to grow and nurture. And one day someone else will value that asset and give you capital in exchange for the asset. And that's how to think about your company. It is not you. It is not your identity. It should be something that's separate from you, that you nurture and grow. So So
if somebody was watching this and they're an entrepreneur and they're thinking that all sounds great, what would be like, if they're starting this new year, like what would be something they should do? Is there start doing this? Is there a first step, second step you would recommend?
Yeah. So depending on where they are in their cycle, one of the easy things they can do, first off, is to look at their finance situation. So if they just have a bookkeeper that's doing their that are doing their books, look at maybe getting reviewed. That's like the first level, reviewed financial statements. If you've already got reviewed financial statements, you might think about getting audited financial statements. The longer the tail on your financial statements, either reviewed, audited being preferred, but reviewed at the very least. Number one, gives you the opportunity to really take a deep dive and look at your business from a different perspective and get a different set of eyes. But number two, it would give a prospective buyer a little bit more confidence in those numbers. So that would be number one. And number two for me would be take a really long, hard look in the mirror and say, if I got sick and I had to leave for a month, would it be better or worse when I came back? And if the answer is worse, that's the first place to start. And that's a hard question for a lot of us to ask. And, oftentimes the answer is, oh my God, it'd be a disaster when I came back. So start looking at the areas where you can maybe delegate some things, or you can automate some things, or you can change some things around that don't always require 1000% of your attention. So that would be the first, for me, that would be the first thing I would look to do in the new year. And then, you can start to take a deeper dive. Do you have the right employees? Do you have the right customers? Do you have the right mix? Here's another huge one that detracts value. Does one of your customers command 20, 30, 50, 80% of your revenue, or do you have a really diversified customer base? So that doesn't mean you get rid of the 80% of your revenue customer. It means you start to diversify and look at some other areas. And there's a million more that follow on from there. But that's probably where I would start in 2020. Yeah. And this is financials. The financials are huge, but this is super, super important. So we talk about a concept called when we sell companies, typically we get outlier outcomes. We get outlier valuations for our clients. And everyone always asks me, I was on the phone with a friend of mine today. We had an hour-long conversation, and he's like, how do you get the outlier valuations? And it comes down to this concept that a business is worth two different things. One is the financial cash flow of the business. And any MBA student from any reputable MBA program can tell you the financial value of a business. You discount the cash flow, you pick your interest rate, and that's the financial value. But over and above the financial value is what we call the strategic value of the business. So if somebody were to own your company, what value above the cash flow might they be able to extract from the business? And the way we talk about this, we use a term called Rembrandts in the attic. I'm sure, Robin, you're sick of hearing me talk about Rembrandts in the attic. But the idea is, imagine there's a home for sale and it's worth $1 million. And you and I and someone else are going to bid on that home. But I know, you don't know, the other bidder doesn't know, and more importantly, the seller doesn't know. But I know that 20 years ago, somebody hid a Rembrandt, an original Rembrandt, in the attic of that home. You might really like the kitchen. Somebody else really might like the backyard. You might bid $1.05 million, or maybe even 1.1 million. And the other bidder says, oh, it's only worth $1 million. And the seller says, wow, I'd love to get $1.1 million for this house. But I know that if I buy the house, I get that Rembrandt that's hidden in the attic. I might be willing to bid 2 million, 3 million, 5 million. Who knows what that art is worth? Every company has Rembrandts in their attic that are worth way more than the cash flow of the business. But until they can really identify those, and more importantly, reverse engineer the value for the buyer, knowing what the buyer could extract. It could be your customer list. Maybe you work with like blue chip pharmaceutical companies, and you've got MSAs that are almost impossible to get with like the top 30 pharma companies. Well, someone else that wants to sell into the pharma space might really value those MSAs, and they might be able to bring their products to those customers. It could be a piece of software or technology you've developed. It could be your team. Like it's hard to find talent right now. Your team could be a strategic value driver. There's a million more. We could run through a long list, but know the Rembrandts in your attic. And oftentimes, here's the hint and the clue. It's often the stuff that you totally take for granted. It's often the things you're so fundamentally good at, you don't even think about them because you're amazing at those. There might be another company out there that totally sucks at those things. finding blue chip clients, whatever it is. And they would kill to get that capability, but you don't even value it because it's just who you are, and it's fundamental. So everyone on this call, I think, should go back, and it's a super fun exercise. Go back and think about, all right, if we were to sell to A, B, or C, and that's another clue, company A might think this is a Rembrandt for them. Company B might care less about that, but they love this part over here. So go back and look at your companies and think about, all right, what's the Rembrandt in our attic, or what are all the Rembrandts in our attic, and who might value those? And most importantly, how much might they value those things? And that's where, A, it's like I said, it's fun, but B, that's where you start to really change your perspective on the strategic value of your company and not just the financial value. Yep. So many times you hear your industry trades at 7 times, and everyone thinks, oh, well, we make $1 million a year times 7, we're worth $7 million. We've seen companies that in industries that trade at 7, we've sold for 23 times because they've got a Rembrandt in the attic that somebody's like, and we always
I gotta have it. Yeah, they gotta have it.
I'd like to have it. I'd love to have it. I have to have it. As soon as you get to have it, like you just said, then it's game on and then negotiating. So
yeah.
It's fun. Like, it's fun to do, and every business has them, even if you don't think yours does. Every single business has those Rembrandts.
Right. So very cool. All right. Well, man, we are up against time. So I appreciate you being here. I know we're going to be working together more in the next year with our members, which is very, very cool. Because I know a lot of our Producers Club members specifically, because they're our high-end members, they're the ones who are most ambitious, I think. I shouldn't say that. I know I shouldn't say it because, but they're the ones that we engage with the most. There's a lot of them. They're really serious about growing their business and really having an excellent business too, so that they can exit at some point. So I know we'll be working together. If people want to know more about you, John, where do they go?
Yeah. So our website is align5, ALIGN, the number 5.com. There's tons of stuff there. Same thing as Chris videos and all sorts of resources. And if anyone wants to have a one-on-one or like a conversation just to kind of run through, they can email our chief of staff. It's Kristen Kopp. So it's K, and she may put it in the chat, I think, but it's KOPP @align5.com, and Kristen can get anyone set up. So yeah, it's a mission. It sounds like a platitude, Robin, and I know you're wired just like I'm wired. It's a mission to help the entrepreneur because somebody helped me along the way, and it changed everything for me. And if I can do that, my days of success, if I can do that one time. And that's why we wake up. That's why you wake up every day. It's why I wake up every day. I feel a kindred connection to you. Plus, I love
yeah.
I love Bella Gloss. I can see that over your shoulder. So
I got Bella Gloss, I got Silver Oak, I've got
and Camus. They're literally like my 3 favorites. So yeah.
There you go.
I knew we were.
Big ass Prisoner, this Methuselah bottle, which look at this bad. This thing is like carved glass. See, this is not a sticker on here. This is actually carved into the glass. So I'm working my way through it, man. I'm doing my best. I'll be on the floor.
Impressive. That's impressive. All right. Well, thanks for having me. I really, really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Thanks for the work that you do.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers.